I've just trekked up a steep road and I come across this cafe which is called the Everest Base Camp. What's the connection with Everest and why is this cafe called the Everest Base Camp? I'll tell you soon. And here's the answer. I'm standing inside the house of Sir George Everest. This is the same Everest after whom Mount Everest has been named. And at a certain point of time, he used to own a house here in Mussoorie in India. So this house has been renovated and opened to public just a few years ago. This was his house, his observatory, and where he spent a few years. And that's the renovation work that has gone behind it, to open it up to public. And since he used his house as an observatory as well, these are some of the tools that he used. And you also see this vintage telescope set here. At some point of the museum, you're going to be seeing George Everest sitting there in one of the rooms himself. Perhaps one of the rooms he occupied as his workstation as well. You have his working table with his compass, his magnifying glass, and his binoculars. And that's the portrait of George Everest, juxtaposed with this 3D model of India's map and the Himalayan snow peaks that you see. I'm at this very interesting room here which talks about the history of mapping. Of course, the calculation of Mount Everest also deals with navigation, calculation, and is involved in the evolution of the history of mapping. But where we're standing today and what the future looks like, we're talking about that history of mapping. And that comes in from GPS, satellite, all of that now, of course, developed by ISRO, of where India stands. 7 satellites, 3 geostationary and 4 geosynchronous. So what was first called as the IRNSS system, which is the Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System. This is a room that takes us through the evolution of ISRO in the navigation system and how the GPS coordinates work in calculating where you stand and where you're standing on the map of India right now. Let me take you through that digital screen. And that's the person, that's the Indian we should really be paying tribute to as far as Mount Everest is concerned. Now, Radhanath Sikdar was working with George Everest's subordinate Andrew Scott. So Andrew Scott, along with Radhanath Sikdar, were working on the computation of the height of Mount Everest. But Radhanath Sikdar, in fact, was the first man in 1852 to actually calculate the height of Mount Everest in whatever tools and technical know-how which was available at that point of time. So in my opinion, Mount Everest should ideally have been named after him as Mount Sikdar. And this is absolutely breathtaking because you have a panoramic 360 view from his home. Of course, he used his home as an observatory. There's a model of George Everest standing with his telescope, making some observations. But look at that glorious sunset that you get. Looking out at this valley. Oh gosh, this is breathtaking. And here is a significant selfie that I'm taking here. And what a selfie to take here with that mountain behind, with George Everest here, with his telescope, and the sunset at this valley. After that exhilarating trip to the Everest house, now back at the Everest base camp. The base camp cafe, of course, to have some chai and pakora.